My name is Charles Usei. I'm the country director of Christian Aid in Nigeria. I represent the team leading our work here in Nigeria out of one of the countries, in over 45 countries we work in globally. Christian Aid as an organization started our work in 1945, just immediately after the Second World War. We were commissioned by 41 churches in the UK and Northern Ireland. And since then, for over 75 years, we've remained in active space in civil society engagement and supporting social movements across the world. By so doing, we always talk about our heritage, where we started as an agency which was supported initially by a group of 41 churches. But since then, we have become a humanitarian and development agency, which is non-partisan, works with all faiths, across all divides, and across all people, all ethnic divides. We began operation here in Nigeria since 2013. And on that note, having said that about Christian Aid, just to give you a sense of who we are, we're headquartered in the UK, and in Nigeria, we're headquartered in Abuja here, operating in 10 offices across the world. The majority of our offices are in the north of Nigeria, and then in the south, we have a hub model, which we work across all the southeast states, operating out of Anambra. We work in, we are based in Kaduna, in Borno. In Borno State alone, we have 4 offices in places like Shani, Dikwa, and Monguno. We are about setting up offices in places like Yobe, Jigawa, and in Kano. We also have an office in Plateau State where we support the efforts there. And we have a long-standing relationship with Benue State, where we have invested the most in Nigeria in all sorts of programs in malaria and social movement, and even supporting humanitarian issues. I remember my first visit to one of the locations that was sacked by some ethnic clashes some years ago. It gave me a sense of how deep some parts of Benue State were at that time. This was in 2014. So Christian Aid have a good experience across Nigeria, and we remained active in the space since 2013. On that basis, on behalf of the Nigeria Country Program, I want to very specially welcome everybody to this event. It's a great honor for us to be here, and I respect the time and the commitment to this that you have all created from your very busy schedule to be here. You honor us and you honor Nigerians. This is not about Christian Aid, this is about Nigerians. This is not about publicity for Nigeria, because this is the last time you hear my voice today. I'll go and sit down like every other person. It's about all of you, it's about all of us, it's about Nigeria. This is not a publicity for any one organization. This is a rallying point. That is why we have called it a movement. It is a movement which will have its own momentum from the energies in this room, from the energy and the commitment of all the religious leaders here. This is about Nigeria. This is more relevant at a critical time like this in Nigeria, in our history, for several reasons. I mean, you all know the statistics. I will not bore you. As you can see, I did not write the speech. I will not bore you with long stories. I just want to create a picture of why this is very important at this point in time. This is about poverty in the first instance. We all know and recognize that Nigeria has taken over as a country with the highest number of people living in extreme poverty in the world. A whopping 90 million people. I think 86 million to be precise. But by random estimation, 90 million people living in extreme poverty in Nigeria. It is the highest anywhere else in the world. We have just overtaken India. Even with a population of 1.2 billion, we still hold the highest number of poor people in the world. That is sitting side by side with holding some of the richest human beings on earth. It's sitting side by side with some of the richest religious leaders in the world. It is sitting side by side with some of the richest politicians in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a problem somewhere. There is a fault gap. There is a crack somewhere. We must examine it. Now, in the midst of all of this poverty, sitting side by side with extreme wealth and influence and affluence, as it were. We are faced with a particular form of inequality targeted at the female gender. So for all of the poverty issues we've talked about, if you read the statistics in terms of extreme poverty, we are talking of people living below $1 a day. So we are talking of people who in Nigerian currency, sometimes it's good to put it in our currency, we are talking about 90 million people who in a week will not spend 500 naira. That is the stark reality. So we are not talking about people who can afford this and afford that. No. We are saying 90 million people in Nigeria today cannot comfortably eat 500 naira in a week. It is that stark. That is what we are talking about. And then in the midst of this, if all of us suffer this level of inequality, the women face it even more, because the only sin, the only crime they've committed is because they are females. That's the only crime they've committed. And so when you look at the statistics, the face of this poverty we talk about is the face of a woman and is the face of a child. And that's why in Nigeria today, out of 11 women who will walk into the hospital to give birth, one of them will come out dead. Out of 5 children that are giving birth today, in today's Nigeria, one of them will not see their 5th birthday. This is not my projection. This is not being prophetic. I'm not the prophet. I'm not the pastor. This is what the statistics tells us. The statistics tells us that out of every 5 children that are born today, one must die before his 5th birthday, before he celebrates his 5th birthday. So this is the reality we are dealing with. And in the midst of that, if we say one child must die, most likely that child will be a girl child. If we say young people do not have jobs, most likely to be a girl child. If we say young boys and young girls face issues with healthcare, most likely it will be the woman. If we say men and women suffer all forms of discrimination, it is most likely the woman. I will not bore you with the statistics, but I want to say that today is a time where we will come together as a group of people, irrespective of our faith, irrespective of our ethnicity, irrespective of what allegiance we hold. Today we're excited to be activating the movement that cuts across all of it, because the Nigeria we have today will only survive when we work together. The issues facing us today, the poverty we're talking about is not poverty that has a religious coloration. The poverty does not have an ethnic coloration. Everybody in the country is going through some form of pain and suffering, irrespective of your religion, your tribe, or where you're based. And so it is important that at this point in time, we as Nigerians will look for solutions for ourselves. And that is why it is with all humility, I am very, very honored to have all our religious leaders here, all our traditional rulers, and all our influential people here today, because it is about us. And with your experience, with your age, with the presence you hold in this country, this is an opportunity. This is a platform where we will hold ourselves to account and we will begin to talk about these things that hold us back as a nation, these things that hold our future, because our future is at stake. Our future is bleak. And this is for majority of us, majority of our religious leaders here are above 45, 50 years old. And if we're having these kind of issues at this age, you can imagine what is available for young people to take over. What is available for children who are just born today, or children who are 10 years old, or our youths who are 20s? We have one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. What are people doing with their time? What are young people doing with their time, especially the young girls? This is unacceptable. The level of poverty and inequality is unacceptable in a country like Nigeria, where we have enough resources to go around. In a country like Nigeria, where we have enough influence to make things the way they're supposed to be. So the question for us today, which I will leave with us as we continue this conversation, is what is our role? What can we do to influence majority of our politicians? Either go to church or go to mosques. What do we say? How do we engage with them? How do we engage with them? What questions are we going to ask them about the level of suffering that is going on in our communities, particularly for the girl child? What laws are in place? What statements are in place? What budgets are in place? Part of the problem we have in Nigeria is even when monies are allocated, they are not disbursed. When they are disbursed, we don't know where they enter. What is wrong? Who will ask these questions? Who will speak out for these people? So if you meet that poor woman somewhere in Zamfara, or that poor man somewhere in Osun, or that young lady who is struggling some form of discrimination anywhere, how will she get her voice heard at very national levels? Some of the people who can help us be a very good to making this happen are the people sitting in this hall. And today we will make history that when this group of people, when this group of leaders walks into this hall today to talk about these issues, today we began a movement that is unquenchable, that is unstoppable by any form of resistance. Today we are making history that your commitment, your voice, your charge, your commitments in wherever it is you are based around constituency. Today you are making a commitment that that will end, that we will continue to expose it. We will expose this form of inequality that is holding us back as a nation, that is holding women back as a nation. We will expose it, and when we expose it, we will challenge it. And when we challenge it, we will call for a change. And when we call for a change, we will follow up to make sure that that change is made, that that change happens eventually. That is the only way a country progresses. That is the only way a country survives. That is the only way a country moves to the next stage. It is not by mere wishes. Nowhere in the world, there's no statistics, there's no evidence that some people in this world have prayed their way to success. There is no evidence anywhere in the world. The only evidence we have is that where a country has moved from poverty into some form of liberation, it is because people like you have taken action. It is because people like you have held the people responsible for taking action. It is because people like you have not kept quiet. And that's why in a decade, in a 10-year period, a country like China and India have moved over 800 million people out of poverty. What are we doing? In that same 10 years period, we have succeeded in bringing more people into poverty. In that same 10-year period. Because 10 years ago, China and India held the largest number of poor people in the world. Today, Nigeria has taken over. While India has become a center of excellence for healthcare, China has become a center. Almost everything most of us here are wearing. If we check, let us stand up and check our labels. 90% of what we are wearing here is from China or Indonesia or Pakistan. How many of them is from Nigeria? I'm hearing from Nigeria. This family is Nigeria. I'm sure some of us are also wearing Nigerian family. But this is the kind of statistics we should be having. When we gather, we should be talking about this kind of statistics. What is Nigeria leading on? What is Nigeria championing globally? But corruption, Nigeria #1. Debt, Nigeria. Conflict, Nigeria. Inequality, Nigeria. No, that is not Nigeria. That is not who we are. That is not how we were brought up. That is not the country we grew into. That is not what some of us, even especially our religious leaders, that is not the country you grew up into. That was not the country we were born into. Many of you were born into a country that had national pride, that had good national statistics. Most of us here, irrespective of your tribe or religion, most of you here grew into a country, or we were born in a country that we are proud of, that was protective. I'm not as old as many of you here, but at least growing up as a child, and I'm sure many of us here will know it, we were given the school feeding program today is not entirely new. Most of us ate free food in school. In fact, at break time, we were giving tea breaks with Milo, we were served Milo with snacks. It's not far-fetched. So there was a time Nigeria worked. There was a time where social services were working. They come to your house to check your house, your very home, to check if you've been immunized, to check if your parents are bullying you. I received social workers in my home growing up as a child. What is wrong with us today? This is not the country we know. This is not the country we want to have. Your Royal Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, I will end my address by once again welcoming us and thanking us for coming for this event. You honor us, you honor Nigerians. This is about Nigeria. This is about all of us. One more opportunity is on our table where we will take this country to greater heights. It will start from a small group like this. That's why the interest is not to hold this kind of event at Eagle Square. The interest is not to hold this kind of event at the Polo Club, where we will have millions of people, because we believe, by evidence, what we have done in Nigeria as a country program, alongside with some of our partners sitting here, we believe that change happens when a few committed individuals start the fight. And with the position some of us hold here, we know, we are convinced, we are fully persuaded that if you go back and take one action, each of us, that action will lead to 5 other actions, which will lead to 10 other actions, and we will bring this country to the place where we want it to be by our collective action. That is what the movement is. That is the way a country progresses. That is the way a country moves from one stage to another. This is the way. This is how it starts. And today, we make witness to it. And on behalf of my team, I thank you. I will not end this address without saying thank you to the Secretariat, which is led by Dr. Otive, the passionate activist, someone who has inspired us in many ways. And today, we stand side by side with him. That is what this movement is all about. We say we stand side by side. So we are standing side by side. Religious leaders are standing side by side. Traditional leaders are standing side by side. As Nigerians, we are standing side by side. So today I thank you, Dr. Otive and your team, Center LSD, for making this happen as a secretariat and as we continue this journey. I thank each and every one of you. I don't know you by names, but I know you as Nigerians. And for that, I thank you for being a Nigerian and for being here, to be part of this movement and to take this country. This country belongs to us. We don't have any other country. This is our country. And so today, we make history. Today, we make a name as we stand up for gender justice in Nigeria. Only us can make it. Just to give you the architecture, there is a global movement of gender justice which has been activated since 2015. From that global movement, we have the African chapter and we have the Latin American Caribbean chapter. In the African chapter, we have the side-by-side for West Africa, side-by-side for East Africa, side-by-side for Southern Africa. The side-by-side for West Africa was launched sometime in April this year. And then in Africa, we already have 10 chapters. By today, when we launch this chapter, we'll be having probably the 11th chapter in Africa. So we are not on our own. This is not just a Nigerian affair. We're activating a global movement that Nigeria's voice will be heard loud and clear by the time we launch this event today. On that note, thank you very much, Your Royal Highnesses, our religious leaders, our very esteemed guests. Thank you very much for your time, for your commitment, for your efforts, on behalf of Nigeria, on behalf of that poor girl, on behalf of that woman out there, on behalf of those poor people that we seek to serve. 90 million of them. Please let it keep reading in your head. 90 million. I'm not saying 90 million naira. I'm not saying $90 million. I'm saying 90 million people like me and you living in extreme poverty. It is unacceptable. On that basis, if it doesn't inspire you, nothing else will inspire you. Thank you very much, and God bless us all.